So Jemele Hill, she is out at Spotify. The reasoning, she says, is they're cutting budgets and she's deciding to leave. There's a separation. Her show wasn't canceled. She has a podcast called Jemele Hill is Unbothered. Well, she's bothered, certainly, about certain things, namely...
It's an ironic title.
Yeah, last year when she asked Spotify to step up and pay her or another African-American $100 million, similar to the money that was handed over to Joe Rogan by Spotify, as if it was based on race and not just results, a demand for the product. This is yet another headline with Hill involved that is just trying to pit one side against the other when it's based on, to me, straight results. And if you're asking just globally, who is worth $100 million for a podcast, the list is extremely small, and Joe Rogan's at the top of that. And that's why he demanded the money that he received. Yeah. Despite all the controversy from last year and all of the last 3 years with his stance on COVID and vaccines, and that twisted and turned people the wrong way, people with voices like Jemele Hill. And meanwhile, you've got Rogan that continues to put out content that people want and that are driven to go listen to because he's authentic. He's himself. He's not letting someone else dictate what he's going to discuss.
Yeah, I think Davey's the biggest Dodgeball fan in the world, the movie, so much so that he doesn't want to see a sequel because the first is such a comedic classic, which is a good movie. But there's a line from Jason Bateman in there. I think he says, bold strategy, Cotton, during one of the games. Bold strategy, Jemele, to put on Twitter that you're daring your employer to pay someone else of a different race. Yeah. Anybody. Could be me. I'm sure she's probably saying that too. Go ahead. If you want to pay me $100 million, I'll take it. But pay anyone else that money that they're paying Joe Rogan. I'm curious about the case of Jemele Hill from this perspective. At what point did her culture war stop being profitable for her? Because Jemele Hill made her way through the ranks by playing the same note over and over and over again. And that is that everyone is racist. Everyone out there is racist. And this is the system that exists. And this is why the system is never going to get fixed. And I read a quote somewhere about, the thing about progress is that it never stops. So even if you are a progressive and you're looking for progress, well, when you get some progress, it's never going to be enough. And the progression is never going to stop. Well, that's Jemele Hill. She has made a living on playing on that side of the culture war. Yet others, they wage a culture war all the time and can be very profitable and get a lot of eyeballs or get a lot of people listening to it. But Jemele Hill has failed here at some point. She can't get anyone to watch one of her TV shows. She can't get anyone to read her books.
Right.
She can't get anyone to listen to her Spotify show, even though most people that's on any digital format would kill for the publicity that Spotify gives to her show, right? She's on the front page every time I go to it of it.
And those are certain initiatives through the company that
But
they've
been doing that, and she wasn't in the top 200.
Right.
I mean, that's point being here, Hutton. The level of failure we've seen professionally from Jemele Hill.
And they've stopped other shows too.
Is really difficult to accomplish with the backing that she's had. She has gotten paid. She has gotten a great spot on SportsCenter at one point on ESPN. ESPN promoted her after that. She's had all these different opportunities, and the wheels have come off at some point. And I just find it interesting that culture war that she's playing is now failing, but there are plenty of other people that play the culture war game, and they win big time. But no longer Jemele Hill, and this Spotify deal is another example. Also, it's a lesson in, maybe don't dare your employer to, pay someone else $100 million and essentially call your employer racist for not doing so.
Yeah,
which is one of the dumbest arguments I've heard.
Yeah, but they didn't get rid of her. This was 2022 whenever she sent this tweet out.
No, but
I mean we're right here.
That started it downhill, and the moment you do that, here's how. Let me give you a little insight into corporate America here. Here's how it operates, right? If they fire her immediately, they are confirming what Jemele Hill is saying. The take is going to be, I spoke up, I used my voice, they let me go, and they're racist. And they proved me right. Everyone's racist. they're racist for firing me, right? But when she said that, the seed was planted. Well, that plant has now grown into her not being renewed.
But
a year later.
But she, based on what she said, though, the fact that they're not handing out $100 million to a minority is racist.
Yes.
It's not the fact that she was employed. It's the fact that she's not, or someone else is not getting $100 million like Joe Rogan, which, by the way, they're spending over $200 million for Rogan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What she said was that. I'm saying when she said that and called her employer racist by proxy, it was done. It was just waiting until her contract was up, or this split was going to happen.
Unless she had the numbers to back up, the audience that she claims she brings with her.
No,
which
I
didn't
think
happen.
What I'm saying is they wanted to fire her then, but they also knew that by firing her, they would almost be proving her point that she spoke up and now she gets fired for saying that, even though it was dumb for her to say it, and they knew this is not going to end well.
And she has since tried to say that the Bloomberg report isn't true, specifically stating that it wasn't just her that she was referring to. She said somebody, which is accurate. It could have been anybody, but one person, and I'm assuming that she was including herself there in that. Also, she said that she hasn't left yet, but will be leaving, and that her show wasn't canceled. So
cool.
But the report's accurate. I mean, she's out of Spotify.
It's semantics.
Yes.
They invested a lot in her and paid her a lot for her show, and they marketed it and did everything they could. It didn't work out. We can label it whatever we want. Her contract's up and she's leaving. It's not canceled. It's canceled. They weren't going to continue it either way. Bottom line is she failed again.
But we're talking about Jemele Hill for the first time regarding her podcast since she went to Spotify.
Yeah, I forgot about it.
Right? Like this is how she gets her name mentioned.
I feel like she did some. I listened to some stuff on the Ringer Network, and I feel like the last time I heard Jemele Hill's name was she was guest hosting a podcast looking back at The Wire with someone on the Ringer Network as like a guest host spot. That was the last time I heard she was doing anything.
And that would have been
I've not listened to this podcast, didn't really know much about it until this story.